In early 2010, Bruno was living the dream. He was a successful Brazilian footballer who was the goalkeeper and team captain for Flamengo, Brazil's most popular football club. Then, the 24-year-old was an upcoming star, with talks that he could be ready to play internationally and of him becoming one of his country's representatives for the 2014 World Cup. However, a few months later, all that would change. On the 9th of June 2010, the athlete's former partner, 25-year-old Elisa Samudio, disappeared. Elisa was a former model who met Bruno in 2009 at a party. Later that year, in August, she told Bruno that she was expecting a child. Elisa claimed that Bruno was her child's father, and she would prove this after her son was born. Bruno, who was already married and had 2 children, refused to support the child, causing Elisa to file a paternity and child support lawsuit against him. On the 13th of October, Elisa reported to Rio police that Bruno and some of his friends had kidnapped her and forced her to take a medication to terminate her child. She also accused the men of beating her and told officers that Bruno pointed a gun to her head. Bruno accused Elisa of lying about the aggression, stating that it was not the first time that she had lied to get him into trouble, and he would not give her the fame that she was after. There was a lengthy investigation and the police wanted to give Bruno a restraining order. However, a judge ruled it out. In February 2010, Elisa gave birth to a baby boy and named him Bruno after his father. A DNA test taken shortly afterwards proved that the baby was indeed Bruno's. Elisa was told by Bruno he would finally settle things out as long as she stopped talking to the press. Forensic examination results from Elisa's reported assault were delayed and eventually released. 9 months later, in August 2010, they did support her claim and showed traces of aggression. However, it was too late, as by then, Elisa had already been missing for at least 2 months. On 11th May, less than a month before the disappearance, Bruno rented a hotel room for Elisa and her son. A family court appearance had been scheduled for 11th of June, when both parties were supposed to discuss arrangements for child maintenance payments and the DNA exam. However, Bruno had told Elisa that she would receive a lump sum payment beforehand, but claimed the cash was at his house hundreds of kilometers away. Elisa agreed to Bruno's terms, so on the 4th of June, Bruno's close friend, Luis Romeo, called Elisa's mobile from outside the hotel and drove both her and the baby there. Luis was accompanied by Jose Sales, a 17-year-old cousin of Bruno, who had been under Bruno's protection after getting in trouble with drug dealers in his local area. It was Jose who eventually told the police the gory details of Elisa's fate. Upon arriving at Bruno's mansion, Elisa was reportedly beaten up by the 2 men. Bruno was not present as he was away playing for his football team. However, later that evening, he turned up. Elisa was kept there until the 10th of June. On that afternoon, she and the baby were taken to her house in another city. There, she was beaten, bound, and then strangled by Marcus Aprecido, a former policeman hired by Luis to handle the killing. Elisa was then chopped up into pieces and parts of her body were fed to Rottweilers. The rest of the remains were buried under concrete. Associates of Bruno, including his ex-wife, then tried to hide the baby from police after searches for Elisa started. The baby was eventually located by officers in a slum. Elisa's body, however, was never found. Bruno handed himself into Rio police on the 7th of July. By then, investigators had already obtained enough evidence to link him with the crime. His contract with his football club was suspended and their lawyers did not represent him anymore in court. According to his accomplice, Bruno tried to commit suicide twice while in prison, waiting for his trial to begin. At first, in his trial, he did not admit to having ordered Elisa killed and blamed Luis for the whole ordeal. He did, however, admit that he had been informed of the crime and that he had lied about it while the police looked for the missing woman. After Bruno's teenage cousin, Jose, confessed to what he had witnessed, Bruno also confessed to organizing the plot. On the 8th of March 2013, he was sentenced to a 22-year jail term for the assault, torture, and murder of his former partner and mother of his youngest child. Luis was sentenced to 15 years and since 2018 has been serving his time in an open prison. He and Bruno have cut off all contact. Marcus, the former policeman, was punished with 36 years in jail, 22 years for Elisa's killing, and 14 years for a previous murder. In February 2017, after Bruno had just served 6 years and 7 months in prison, his lawyers filed a petition of temporary release because of the slow proceedings of an appeal request. The petition was granted and Bruno was released from jail pending an appeal. After his release, Bruno immediately received a number of contract offers and quickly signed a 2-year contract with the football club Boa Sports. This caused an uproar in Brazil and one of the club's main sponsors ended its deal with the club. Protesters staged demonstrations outside the ground, saying the club was endorsing the very high levels of violence against women in Brazil. In a rare interview, Bruno said he had made a mistake, but mistakes happen in life. He also claimed he was not a bad guy and was hoping to carry on with his career. Bruno played 5 games of football before the Attorney General successfully called for his release to be reversed. This was because the defense's legal team were partly to blame for the delays in his appeal. In July 2019, a court granted Bruno the right to serve the rest of his sentence in a semi-open system, which allows prisoners to sleep at home. Since his latest partial release, a number of clubs have expressed interest in signing the disgraced goalkeeper, but pressures from supporters and sponsors have barred him from another return. However, legally, nothing prevents Bruno from getting back into football. In the rare interviews he has given, Bruno, now 35, has repeatedly implied he is having his shot at resuming his life denied. While Bruno may be feeling restricted, Elisa's mother, Sonia, is having a harder time getting over her daughter's death. In an interview with a Brazilian magazine, she said the courts allowed Bruno to have all his wishes, while she can't even find her daughter's remains. Sonia is also the legal guardian of Bruno and Elisa's son. She revealed that the boy has panic attacks when he hears from his father. Despite this, Bruno still wants to reconnect with his son. In a media interview, he claimed to have wanted to tell his son everything that happened and ask for forgiveness, letting his son decide whether to accept his apology or not.